So what was the hardest part about raising funding for Upload.com?
PAYFORT.com is, as you know, it's a startup. So as any startup, we always have obstacles in the way. So raising funds for us has been always very difficult because we've been spending left, right, and center to reach where we are right now. So we've been spending from our own pockets, but thank God we've been able to be supported by the Ministry of Communications over at Egypt, and we've been incubated and funded over there. But right now we're looking for another round of investment, so we're also going to be struggling to be able to convey our message very clearly to all our investors / venture capitalists, so we can be able to acquire that investment and reach our next step.
Great.
Funds, we haven't raised funds yet, but I was also part of a startup that had already raised funds before, so I know a little bit about the local ecosystem, and I know that the funds are growing, which is great, but there is still, I feel, a little bit of fear when it comes to innovation, because they are still, fearing risks. So if you have an idea that's very innovative or where the return comes a little bit later, then they are more skeptical and they are more comfortable with the ideas that are either replication of existing products abroad rather than innovate. So I think this is one thing maybe that affects how efficiently we raise funds and how fast. And I think this is something that we should change in our mindset in the region, because unless investors and funds become more risk averse, then really we won't be able to grow.
So the hardest part is actually selling your idea to the investors. When investors come and see your idea, they're like, okay, so everyone else is doing that, why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you doing that? So the hardest part, I think, is to convince them that, hey, I'm different. I am not like the others. I am actually doing this and not that.
Finding investors that are willing to pay and believe in your product, especially if you do not have enough traction, but need the money to create that traction. So that is the hardest thing about raising money.
The toughest part of raising an investment, in my opinion, is the financial projections that have to be convincing. And of course, as with many people, is the time and effort that you put into it.
There's two struggles mainly that come to mind. First off is getting investors to understand Bitcoin and its potential in the Middle East, which I personally believe is huge. But we're still at the early stages, so it isn't always as obvious. The second part, I think, is the investors' appetite and risk tolerance. As an early stage startup, we obviously present a bigger risk in terms of an investment for investors, and so we want to. Yeah, actually, just cut it there.
So the hardest thing when you're raising funds actually is to hit the right milestones. So when you approach investors, you want to have the proper milestones to be able to convince them that you've reached a certain level of maturity as you go through your rounds. Now, it doesn't mean that, by checking these boxes, you're doing it. No, these milestones are important to actually grow your business. That's why they're asking for them. So that's the hardest part.
In my experience, it just basically takes a lot of time and effort. Sometimes you need to email a single investor about 20 times. They're still not going to get back to you. You have to jump on them basically within an event. It's going to take about 2 months normally, averagely, to actually close a deal after they're actually loving your idea. You have to talk to about at least 20, 30 people to get 1 or 2 interested to actually engage. So that's probably the hardest part. But then again, you're doing a startup. Nothing is easy. But if you want to do it, you can do it without any efforts eventually. You're going to make it. Good luck.